Hello, my name is Nicholas Ferranda, and I'm the Director of Student Disability Services here at the New School. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my talk about student disability services and your rights and responsibilities relating to students with disabilities and the services that we provide at the New School. So to start, we should talk about what the definition of a disability is. And according to the American Disabilities Act as amended in 2008, the definition of a disability is a student who has a physical or mental impairment with significant impact in one or more major life functions or activities. So as you can see on the slide, we're talking about seeing, hearing, thinking, reading, comprehending, concentrating, etc. Basically anything that would impact the student's ability to absorb, retain, and communicate the information that you are trying to teach them in your class. They also need to have a record of having this disability and having this impairment. They need to have documentation from licensed medical professionals about this impairment. And they also, importantly, need to be otherwise qualified to be here. So that means basically that with the exception of their disability, they are otherwise qualified, or they have all of the other skills or tools necessary in order to be successful at the college level. So their admission standards are exactly the same as any other student who is admitted to the New School. Some of the most common disabilities that we see in our office include depression, anxiety, ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, a wide range of learning disabilities, including dyslexia, autism spectrum disorders. We have some students who are deaf or hard of hearing. We have some students who are visually impaired, and we have a number of students who also have gastrointestinal diagnoses and diseases, including Crohn's, irritable bowel syndrome, and gastroparesis. All of these can have significant impacts on a student's ability to be successful in your class, the ability for the student to be able to attend your class, the ability for the student to be able to study to prepare for your class, and potentially the ability to communicate within your class when they're there. I'd like to talk to you for a moment about some basic concepts related to interaction, etiquette for students with disabilities. The most important thing is to consider how important language is in our society. And so we want you to consider to use person-first language. So we consider students with disabilities as person-first language because they are a student first. The fact that they have a disability is simply a trait of part of the larger part of who they are. So it's a person with a disability, a person in a wheelchair, not a wheelchair-bound person. A person who is hard of hearing, not a deaf person. Keep that in mind so that you can see holistically who that student is and help avoid labeling a student simply by their disability. As with everyone else, we want you to treat these students with dignity, respect, and courtesy. There are some students who have, again, various physical or intellectual disabilities that may take longer to process information. And so we would like you to consider giving them the time that they need to express themselves without unsolicited aid. And don't try and finish their sentences. And if you don't understand them or it's a little bit unclear, don't be afraid or don't hesitate to ask them to repeat a statement. We don't want you to identify a student with a disability to another faculty member or staff member by making comments about the student disability outside of class, because that is a violation of the right to privacy. If you're going to offer assistance, we want you to wait until the offer is accepted. We don't want you to offer assistance and then go ahead and do it for them. Just listen to what they would like you to do or ask how you can help them, and don't insist if your offer is rejected, even if you think you can do it more easily. If you're engaging with a student in a wheelchair or a student with mobility issues, and it's going to take more than a few minutes to discuss that issue, it's always best to sit down or place yourself at that student's eye level so that there is no inherent dynamic of power difference. You don't have to be super sensitive about common expressions like "it's nice to see you" or "did you hear about that," just because it may be incompatible with a student disability. A student who has low vision or is blind is not going to take offense to "it's nice to see you." If you're in a classroom and there is a student who is deaf and who utilizes interpreter services, we want you to speak to the student and maintain eye contact with the student who has come to see you, and don't look at the interpreter. And likewise, when the student is communicating back, maintain eye contact with the student, not the interpreter. The student is going to be bouncing back and forth between you and the interpreter, but you only need to worry about maintaining contact with the student.